going to get started with a special session of the Huntington County School Board of Trustees. And
Mr. Allen?
here.
Mr. McClellan?
Here.
Mr. Melcher?
Here.
Mr. Wall?
Here.
Mrs. Heim? Here. Mr. Carl?
Moving on to item B2, District 2 Trustee. I'll turn it over to Mr. Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We're here tonight to interview the 6 candidates who are presenting themselves for your consideration. This is directed to the 6 board members, and you are the ones that will be voting at the end. Obviously, we'd like for you to consider all candidates equally before you make your final decision. We did a double random draw and determine the order for interviews. Cynthia Kiefer will be interviewed first, Deb Miller second, Colin Davis third, fourth is Jim Detmer, fifth is Chris Hoffman, and then Mr. Hank Miller is sixth. We have allotted 20 minutes for the interviews, and we'll have a timer on that. However, we've added a 5-minute cushion in that we're not going to be like Congress and your microphone's turned off. To finish a thought, finish the answer to a question, we'll let you do that. We just want to make sure we cover everything as thoroughly as possible. Again, at the conclusion of the interviews, we'll take enough of a break to gather our papers and thoughts. We will not recess at all, and we'll go into a time of discussion by the board members to express any thoughts about the interviews, and then we'll start a series of balloting. So with that, and again, Cindy will be on the timer. So Mrs. Kiefer, you are first in the chair. This is Cynthia Kiefer. Okay, ready, Cindy? Is it starting? Okay. Introduce yourself to us by talking about your background and education experience as it relates to your application.
Well, my name is Cindy Kiefer, and I have grown up here in Huntington County, went to school through the system here, and my first encounter with the school system was when our oldest son began kindergarten, and that was in 1976. And I have been involved with the school corporation ever since then. In 1989, I became a teacher, and my first position was at the old Crestview School. And I went back to school, got my master's in administration, and have been an administrator at Central and Flint Springs Elementaries, and I went through the building process from Central to Flint Springs, which was not easy. That took quite a while. But I have a passion for this corporation, and I have served in many capacities within the schools, and even now. I retired in 2013 as principal Flint Springs, but I have been doing long-term subbing administratively and in classroom long-term subs. I will sub for the secretaries also, so I am still very much involved with the corporation, and it's my life. I love it.
Other than school related, have you been on any other not-for-profits, served on board of directors, trusteeships, other offices in the past?
In public?
Yes,
In the
public domain.
No.
What do you believe are the qualities and skills of an effective school board member, and what of those qualities do you believe are your strongest attributes?
I think communication is the biggest, the strongest, and I think that's probably my best is communication, but I think listening also. Listening and communicating are the two top, but communication is probably my strongest.
How is that your strongest attribute? Communication. What are your communication skills?
I am a good listener when people come and talk to me, and I try to weigh everything from what I'm being told, and then kind of put it all together, synthesize it, and make a decision, communicate back what I am thinking. I have had to communicate as an administrator with staff and school board and parents, students, and so I think that's required a great amount of communication skill.
Understanding the differences in role between Board of Trustees, principal, classroom teacher, will you advocate for students as a member of the Board of Trustees?
Since I am retired and I am in the schools a lot, I would like to continue to do that, talking with teachers, talking with classified staff, find out what their concerns are, what is the message that they would like for the board to hear, and then bring it back to the board as a communicator for the staff. I think sometimes the staff feel like they don't have a direct communication with the board, and they have concerns that they don't know where to direct those concerns. So I would like to be that liaison.
As a representative, concerns will be brought to you by the public. How will you handle those concerns, and how will any board votes reflect priorities, desires of your constituents or those that have approached you?
I will listen very carefully to the concerns. I won't be able to give the person that I'm talking with an answer. What I can do is listen, then bring those concerns back to the board for discussion, and vote my conscience.
Questions?
I do understand that my ideas will not always align with the people that I represent. I do understand that.
So do you vote according to the number of people that contact you?
No. Because the number of people that contact me will probably have different perspectives.
This is probably the question you've perhaps been asked by friends, family, and anyone else. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to serve as a school board member for HCCS? And comment, if you can, about the ability to devote the time necessary to take on this responsibility. So first, why this, and discuss time commitment.
I have, as I said before, I have been in the corporation for quite a while, and even after retirement, I have taken on long-term sub positions because I feel a great, I don't know what to say, I feel a great commitment to the community to serve in any way that I can. And because of my background and my education, I think this is a perfect place to be able to serve, continue to serve the community within the school corporation. My time is, I'm retired, and so time commitment will not be an issue for me.
What do you believe are the strengths and the weaknesses of the public education system in Huntington County?
I think the strengths have to do with the teachers that we have. I think the teachers are dedicated to the students, and I truly believe that they are the strength, as well as the support staff is the strength of our corporation. Everyone working together. The children in each school belong to the whole school, and everyone takes responsibility for them from what I have seen. Weaknesses, I think I really do think communication between upper administration and those that are underneath them at some point. And I don't put the fault on the upper administration. I think that sometimes people are leery to even say anything or don't know who to talk to. But I think we need to make it an open process so people are comfortable talking with us.
What would your personal priorities be in the next year? Let me preface that for all candidates to understand, this is fulfilling an unexpired term.
Right.
So there's 2 years left on this term, so 25, 26. So what personal priorities or goals would you have? And then there's a follow-up to that. But talk about any personal priorities you may have.
I think the main priority is getting into the schools and making myself visible in the schools. I'm very comfortable in a school situation. I know all of the administrators in Huntington County, and I know many of the teachers, and I think that they would feel comfortable talking with me. I do not think that I could serve on the board if I did not know what was going on in the schools. How what happens at the board meeting affects what goes on in the school building. And, you know, the students are our priority, so we need to know what's going on with them.
Part 2 of that is personal priorities. How about corporate priorities, corporate goals for the corporation?
I think keeping a handle on the finances. What I saw last night from the board, I was impressed. I thought that was that we're certainly heading in the right direction. And I do not mean this to be disrespectful at all, but I think that as a board, we have to become more personable, do I want to say? I know you all are very personable, but as a group, I think sometimes community does not understand what you're doing, what your goals are, and where you see where our corporation is going to be. So I think the finances and then communication with community, just making ourselves more available.
Okay.
So people understand what's going on in the schools.
If you could give a definition of the role and function of a board member and what the board plays in the process of the overall education of Huntington County students. So what role does an individual board member play? What role does the school board at large play in the overall process?
I think the individual board members do listen to their the district people that they represent. So I think that's a personal goal that every board member should have, would be to listen, to take what people have to say and really consider it. As an entire board, I think that we need to realize that everything that is decided affects the students in some way, from finances to curriculum, anything that you vote on eventually affects our students. And that's why we're here. We're here for the students. And I cannot stress my feeling of that enough. They have to be our top priority.
The advantage of going first is you get to give a lot of the answers. By the time we get to 4, 5, and 6, they can just say, "Oh yeah, what she said."
What she said.
At the same time, you've not heard the other candidates. You've really maybe have not had any other chance to hear any other positions. But why are you the best candidate? Why should this board bring you on to work with them?
I think I could hit the ground running on the school board because I am very much in tune with what is going on with finances, with curriculum, with the buildings, and I think that I would not have to take a lot of time to learn my responsibilities for the board.
Is there anything that I have not asked that you, boy, I wanted to make sure they heard this about me or my opinion or attitude?
What I just want to reiterate is that I do feel like I am the best candidate because of my position already in the school corporation. That might seem to some like maybe a negative, but I think it is not a negative. I think it's a positive because I see the corporation from a bird's eye view and also from a ground view when I am in the schools.
Okay.
I think that's all I have.
We, the questions, so everybody understands, were compiled by the board members submitting ideas, thoughts, and I compiled them. We left a space of time here if they have any individual or follow-up questions. So do any board members have any questions they would like to ask Mrs. Kiefer about either her comments or her resume? You have her resume and have had that since last Friday. So are there any other questions, follow-up questions? I'll start. Mr. Melcher? No. Mr. Carl? Mr. Wall? Mr. Allen? Mr. McClellan? Mrs. Hine? Okay. Thank you very much. We appreciate your interest. And I haven't said this at the beginning, but the board will vote on candidates tonight at the end of the last interview.
Okay.
All right. Gather ourselves here for a second. And then Mrs. Miller, if you want to make yourself comfortable there. And again, I would stress I've been in these situations that when you're getting the same question and you don't, please, if it repeats something somebody else has said, that's okay. We're trying to hear about you and learn about you. So, we ready? Okay, Mrs. Miller, introduce yourself to us. Talk about your personal background and your education experiences as it relates to applying for this position.
Good evening, and thank you so much for letting me have this opportunity to talk with you. My background has been in education, many different facets of education, but it's my passion. It remains my passion. I have started my first degree was a bachelor's, got my master's, and then went on to get additional certifications for special education and also for counseling. I have taught elementary second grade, kindergarten, and again, I've taught special education and also been a school counselor. I have been a building principal for 14 years, 10 of them here in Huntington County and 4 in Southwest Allen. And I have been so blessed, given the opportunity, to come up through the Huntington County Community School System and the advantages that they've given me. And then to move on into other areas of education. From Southwest Allen, I began working with Pearson Education and the first student data mining software that had been developed in the country. I was invited to join Pearson and learned a whole different aspect of the educational process and systems and how it works to benefit kids.
Okay, thank you. What, other than school-related activities, what other boards, committees, offices that you have been involved with in our community?
In Huntington County, I've been involved with several. In the past, I was involved with the Huntington YMCA Board of Directors and then served as president while we were doing the planning phases and the fundraising for, it's not the new YMCA anymore, but at that point it was the YMCA, and that was an incredible experience, by the way, and it's so nice to be able to drive by there and see what that's contributed to our community. I belong to Psi Iota Xi philanthropic sorority. I was a member of the Northeast Indiana State AIDS Council. We had representatives from the school district, and I served on that committee. Also on this, I am a group leader and initiator of a support group for the Northeast Indiana NETS, which is a specific type of cancer support group for Northeast Indiana. I also belong to Fort Wayne Health Equity. That's enough.
Okay. You say the new YMCA, this is still the new high school.
You know, since we graduated at the same time, it's brand spanking new.
That's right, that's right. Discuss what you believe are the qualities and skills of an effective school board member, and how does that match with your attributes and characteristics?
Meeting with and having friends on the school board and watching the school board in action over the years, there's so many characteristics of really effective boards, and it comes down to those individual members and what they bring to the table. Collaboration, empathy, caring, putting kids first. As a board member, my question would always be, how does this make things better for kids? And how does this improve teaching and learning for kids? So being able to collaborate, to problem solve together, those are characteristics that allow us to get to a good answer, a good plan, and have good results.
So if students are the focus, how will you advocate for them as a board member?
Again, as a board member, my question will always be, how does this help kids? How is this good for children? How is this going to make teaching and learning better for kids so that they have better outcomes? How are we going to improve teaching and learning for kids? But also to advocate for them in the community as well, and help spread and talk about the positive aspects of what happens in schools. I don't think we often get the word out there of all the good things that are happening for kids. And every time we can get the information out to the community and help people to see what's happening, the good things that are happening for kids, it's going to improve.
You will be a representative of a constituency, a district within the county. How will you address concerns brought to you not only by those constituents, but any constituent in the county by the public, and how will your votes reflect the priorities and desires of the people in your district?
When people are concerned, it often stems from not understanding the whole picture, not having all the pieces of the puzzle. And so they might hear something, or they might draw a conclusion, or they may not know how it all comes together to fit. I think personally it would be my responsibility to first and foremost listen and be an active listener and try to understand where they're coming from. Where did that information come from? How did you draw that conclusion, or where did this concern originate? As a board member, I can't give answers for the entire board, but I can also try to help them to see those things they haven't experienced or they haven't understood, and then to bring that information and concern back to the group. I certainly don't think we can dismiss anyone's concerns, but we can certainly empathize and try to advocate for making sure they have all of the information.
The question's in the middle of the questions, but it's maybe the big question. Why do you want to do this?
Again, having grown up here in Huntington County and been the benefit and the advantages of a student coming through this school district, I really want to give back. I'm at the point in my life looking for opportunities to give back. And with my background and experience and knowledge, I feel like I can contribute to the conversation, not just as a community member, not just as an educator, but also from the business aspect. I've worked with school districts across the United States and overseas, and I've seen the best of the best, and I've also seen situations that make me quite sad. So I think I can bring those conversations, and I can bring problem solving to the mix. Working in the business aspect, working as an administrator, you really learn to problem solve, usually by making good decisions, but also bad decisions, and learning along the way. But being able to bring that skill, I think, is important.
The second part of that question, I did not ask it about time commitment for meetings, visitations, being in the school. Talk to the board about that, of your time availability.
I can see it takes a tremendous amount of time, and I'm so grateful for everyone here and everyone previously who've made this commitment to do it. It's just not what you see sitting here at the table and then going home. It's ongoing, just like any community servant, giving to the community. I'm retired. My kids are grown, 3 of the 4 are in education, and so I have the ability to spend time and devote it to being a servant.
Okay. What do you believe are the strengths and what are the weaknesses of the public education system here in Huntington County?
I can speak to, and will speak to locally, but I think it's wrapped up in what's happening statewide, what's happening nationally for education, which I think is going to be even more challenging as we move forward. I think for Huntington County, we have so many great things going on. We don't have our local newspaper anymore. It's hard to get a common message out to everyone at the same time in the same way. So I think trying to find ways to market Huntington County Community Schools and what are the good things that are happening, so people really have a common understanding, a common vocabulary about the great things. If you look at the Learning Center, oh my gosh, that's second to none. It's an award-winning program that is just growing exponentially. And we have to make sure that people know what's going on here.
What about weaknesses? You maybe touched on that, but
I think making sure that we have a system of communicating out to the public, a systematic way of getting information out about the good things that are happening, but even concerns, trying to stay ahead of, and it's not easy, but trying to stay ahead of the ball game, anticipate concerns, and communicate how we're going to address that, how we are addressing that. It's not that we don't, it's just trying to find an environment that is so disparate when it comes to having tools to communicate. How do we do that? How do we get that out there?
Do you have personal priorities for this board, this corporation in the next year, and what should be corporate goals, priorities for the board? Let's start with your personal priorities.
One of my goals is to encourage creative approaches to teaching and learning, to support creative approaches to teaching and learning, thinking outside of the box, bending but not breaking. We're in an environment now where schools are becoming competitive, and we need to give our educators the freedom to seek out creative solutions and creative alternatives and look at research-based practices to improve teaching and learning. Another goal I have is to attract and retain quality teachers, and I think that has to be a board goal. Today, well, not today, January 3rd, we had openings of 1,800 teaching positions in the state of Indiana. We had almost 2,500 openings in support staff and other educational positions in the state of Indiana. This is a trend that's nationwide. We're not one of the top struggling, but having that many openings at the beginning of January in the state means we aren't retaining and building highly qualified teachers to fill those positions in our state, and we have to talk about how to do that locally. That's a goal, and I think that one should be one for the district. My passion is raising awareness and addressing mental health issues for students. We have to. We're seeing that reflected in what teachers have to deal with in the classrooms, with an increase in behavior, negative behaviors in the classroom. And we have to be able to meet the needs of those students. If you'll just give me a sec, I have some stats on that too, and I want to share these. The Youth Risk Behavioral Survey that was done for the state of Indiana indicated that half of Indiana students face mental health issues, 47%. 47% of our students are reporting depression. 47%. 1 in 4 indicated they have a plan for suicide. One in 4. 1 in 6 have attempted suicide. With these challenges that we're seeing in mental health, we must address what resources we have, how we're doing those. Hats off to the district and the community and coming together and getting 4 resource officers at the high school. That's amazing. Designating a health professional to begin looking at mental health issues for Huntington County schools. You're already taking those steps to move forward, but as I've shared, we should all be extremely concerned. Do we have enough resources? How are kids getting help? How are they reaching out? Where do they go when they need assistance in Huntington County? That particular goal would be one that I will continue to work on. As a counselor, I was a counselor 30 years ago, and I could only do it, friends, for 3 years. I just couldn't. you take it home, you see it, and you can't believe what our kids go through. And we have to find a way to provide the support for them, which ultimately supports teachers and families in our community.
Why are you the best qualified candidate for this position?
I don't know that I'm the best qualified candidate. I can tell you what I feel are my strengths that I bring to the table that I think would benefit. My experience is varied and is vast. Again, I've worked with districts all over the United States and overseas. I know data-driven instruction and decision-making. I know school improvement, and I know collaboration and helping to build consensus. And I would bring those skills to the board.
What have I not asked you that you wanted to make sure, I say this, that either I've not asked you about or you've not been able to elaborate on?
To be honest, I can't think of anything. Check my notes here real quick, but I can't think of anything that really I wanted to share. I think I would like to emphasize once again that supporting creativity and creative programs can really go a long way. You know, in the state of Indiana, we see charter schools coming up throughout the state. We have none here, but they're given the license. Go do whatever you want to do. Just go do it. Be creative. Go have fun. There's nothing stopping us from also supporting creative thinking and problem solving when it comes to teaching and learning, and supporting our teachers and our staffs and our administrators in seeking out those creative paths.
Okay. Board members, do you have any follow-up questions? Anything that was not asked or addressed? I assume you'll let it be known by raising your hand, or Carrie, no? Okay. All right, thank you, Deb.
Thanks.
And we will, again, reassemble here, and then,
I'm going to say something real fast. You guys hear her
Well,
about mental health?
Cassandra,
You guys let that 16-year-old commit
Security.
suicide and two 12-year-olds attempt suicide.
You're gonna get removed with this
Listen.
police officer
all
right
right.
now. This is not for
Did
this.
you hear her say about mental health, though? You guys don't give a fuck about our students.
One more time, I'm gonna charge you with disorderly conduct. That's enough.
Okay. All right. Ready to go again? Colin, are you ready to go?
Yep, as ready as I will be, I suppose.
You never know what's going to happen at a school board meeting, right? Yeah. All right. Oh, you've already started. You'll get 10. You'll get 12. Well, you'll get extra seconds.
Okay.
Colin, introduce yourself to us. Give us your background, education background as it relates to applying for this position.
Well, first of all, thank you all for your service on the board and the opportunity to be here tonight. My name's Colin Davis. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering Technology from Penn State and an MBA from Huntington University. I have 18 years of manufacturing experience, and I specialize in continuous improvement. And how that applies to a school board is just a focus on problem solving and driving data-driven decisions. I believe I can apply those principles to help proactively identify issues in the district, track district's progress towards goals, and make data-driven decisions when we're trying to make policies that advocate for students. I have Leadership experience, I spent 4 years on the leadership team locally at Bendix, and I served on the United Way of Huntington County for 2 terms. I am currently on the City of Huntington Redevelopment Commission, and I'm in my 3rd year of that assignment.
Kind of leads into the second question about other not-for-profit experience or serving as a director of trustee, anything in addition to what you just mentioned there as far as those types of experiences?
I have been previously involved with the local Cub Scout Pack 3117.
What did that teach you, being a Cub Scout leader?
Patience. I mean, as if having 4 kids didn't, but you know, I grew up in scouting. I'm an Eagle Scout, and you understand the importance of adult role models, and not everybody has that in home, and sometimes you're that resource. You got to keep that in mind.
Discuss what you believe are the qualities and skills of an effective school board member, and how do your qualities and skills and characteristics match up to those that list? So the qualities of an effective school board member, and then how do you match up to that?
Yeah, communication, collaboration, and community involvement. I think all those hold weight, and I'm pretty approachable. Like, I don't get emotional with people. Like, I'm level-headed, and like I said, back to the data-driven decisions, I speak with fact and information. I don't let emotions get to me. So I think that plays to my advantage. And I have, like I said, I have 4 kids in the school district, so that gets me out in the community. I have 2 kids in elementary school, 2 second graders, a son in 6th grade, and a daughter getting ready to go to the high school. So that gets me out in the community with different school events and things. Did I touch on all the points?
Well, I think again, your definition of what makes an effective school board member, and how do your personal characteristics match up with that? So is there anything else on?
Yeah, I mean, just making sure you keep the best interest of the student in mind. Okay. Like, I guess always checking yourself against, is this in the best interest of the students?
Which leads us to the follow-up on that on students. How does a board member effectively advocate for students?
Making sure policies that are implemented are in students' best interest. And making sure, when we're setting budgeting and setting, defining new leadership for superintendents, like making sure that there's good alignment. Obviously, if you're not managing the budget well, the school district isn't going to be sustainable. So, like, the budget side of it has huge implications.
As elected in the sense by this board, but as a representative of your District 2, but all of Huntington County, how will you address with concerns brought to you by the public, and will board votes reflect your priorities and desires of the people and your opinions on matters?
What's the first part of that question?
A public member comes to you concerned about anything from a sports team, the classroom, the bus driver.
Yeah, sure.
The lady in the lunch line. How will you deal with that when somebody?
Yeah, so like discerning what is, I guess, legitimate concern and what is emotion, and then weighing that against, collaborating with other board members, seeing if those are concerns in their districts, understanding how widespread the concern is, and weighing all those things when making decisions.
do you feel a responsibility then? Do you report back to that individual or the public, or how do you keep those lines of communication open? I've come to you with a concern about a classroom teacher.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of depends on how large the issue is. I think that's going to depend on the appropriate response and appropriate follow-up. But like, if it is a response, certainly follow-up could be appropriate to the person and explaining why the board had to make the decision that it made. Like what, in my experience in manufacturing, like basically I'm the connecting point between like executive leadership and the floor. So I got to explain why the company decided to go one way versus another. And when you explain to people like the reasoning, when people have a good understanding of the reasoning behind a decision, they're more likely to, understand it and accept it.
Okay. Which leads us to the middle question, but is the main question: why? Why are you applying to serve as a school board member? And second part about understanding the time requirements to serving in this responsibility. So initially, why did you apply?
Yeah, I want to make sure that District 2 has good representation, and also it's a good way to give back to the community. The second part of that, time commitment, it's just a matter of time management.
Do you control your own time? Are you, as far as work responsibilities?
Yeah, and there's flexibility there.
What do you believe are the strengths and weaknesses of public education as it exists here in Huntington County, and even broader than that? Mrs. Miller brought up even in the state, but what are the strengths and weaknesses particularly of public education here in Huntington County?
Certainly administrators, teachers, and support staff, I would say, are the strengths, and I would say the weaknesses are on the communication side. Back to the point, just making sure we're communicating why decisions are being made, what the board had to, all the things that the board had to weigh when making the decision, and having that communication loop back to the community.
Any ideas how to improve communication?
Yeah, I guess I didn't reflect on that too heavily yet, but whether that is social media or more in-depth video at the end of the school board meeting. If we wanted to dive deeper into a certain topic, we could have follow-up discussion there. Perhaps people could submit questions, and we could address those at the end of the board meeting if they're not able to attend the meeting in person. Heck, I don't know. Facebook Live might be a little bit of a challenge, and certainly negativity's there, but that's one way that people could submit questions while the discussion while the meeting's going on. But then you got to have a moderator, and there's some logistics there.
Do you have, or what would be your personal priorities, personal goals to accomplish by the board? And then second part would be corporate goals of the entire board. So first of all, what are your personal priorities?
Yeah, continuing to engage in the community and just be available to constituents. Remain approachable. So when people have a concern, they know that they can come to me. Or even just a talking point.
Anything different for the board as a whole or the corporation as a whole, or the same types of priorities?
Back to the communication side, making sure that we're effectively explaining, what went into the decision, why the board went the way it did, and how they feel it would have long-term implications on the school district. If
you could give a definition to the role and a function that a board member plays and the school board as a whole plays in the education process. In other words, what's the role and function of an individual member? What's the role and function of the board at large?
The individual representative represents the district, the constituents in their district, and votes in the board as a whole, votes on policy. They vote on the superintendent, they manage the budget, and advocate for students.
Why do you feel, Colin, you would be the best choice, the best qualified candidate for this position?
Experience in data-driven decision-making and problem-solving, just a unique approach, a little outside-the-box thinking brought to the board. That's what I would...
That's the engineer in you.
Yeah,
probably.
exactly. Analytical. I'm analytical. I mean, my wife might have an opinion about that thought process sometimes, but
That's the way you
yeah, that engineering with also a balance of business education.
What has not been asked of you, a point you'd like to make, or something about you that, gee, I thought they would ask this and they didn't? What's anything more about you that we need to know?
I just, I'm passionate about being involved in the community. Growing up in scouting, they emphasized the importance of community service. So just hundreds of hours of community service growing up, and just wanting to be engaged in the community has continued. And then, I have a vested interest. I have 4 kids in the school district, and my wife teaches at Flint Springs.
Okay. And you were a Penn State graduate?
Yeah.
That was tough for her, wasn't it?
Yeah. Let's not talk about that on record.
Yeah. So you still say we are, right?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Board.
Yeah, we should have had that game.
Yeah. Board, any questions, follow-up to anything Mr. Davis said that was omitted, not discussed? Are you all good? Everybody good? Okay. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Okay, you're ready?
I am.
Cindy? We'll get the... All right. Mr. Detmer, just introduce yourself, talk about your personal background, any educational experience, and all of that, how it relates to your application to serve on this board.
Absolutely. My name's James Detmer, but people that like me call me Jim, so we'll kind of assess how that goes a little bit later. So my background, I did not grow up in Huntington, and I definitely recognize that as a disadvantage. But I did grow up northeast Indiana in a small town and understand what that means. My parents are both educators, so my education about education started at the dinner table every single night. I got my bachelor's degree from Purdue University, went there for 4 years, came back to the area and started my teaching career. I was an elementary school teacher for a good long time. I spent 10 years in the classroom, 2 years as an instructional coach, and then transitioned to administration in Fort Wayne Community. That's where the bulk of my career was. as a teacher. As an administrator in Fort Wayne Community, I was in charge of testing. I actually oversaw the transition of a fully paper test to a fully digital test in my five years in that position. I also have a master's degree in educational leadership and still have an active teaching license, which I'm not using. My current job, I just have spent the last 5 years at Steel Dynamics at the corporate office as a human resources project coordinator. So all of these kind of components, I definitely recognize that my path has been unique, and there have been parts that have been very enjoyable and parts that have been very tough. But that's kind of my educational background and my background of who I am and why I'm here tonight.
Beyond education-related, employment-related, what other not-for-profit committee work, volunteer work in the community have you had, if any?
I was a member of the board for the Chief LaFontaine Saddle Club, was president for 3 years of that. I have been a member of the board of the Indiana Pinto Association for a good long time, spent 2 years as president of that.
I'm sorry, you said Pinto?
Pinto horses.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
Pinto.
one of my one of the things that I do outside of my regular career is I also have a horse business here in town. So yeah, spent some time doing quite a bit of that too.
What do you believe are the qualities and skills of an effective school board member, and which of those qualities and skills are your strongest attributes?
I'm probably going to be a little bit different from your other candidates in that I believe that an important skill is actually silence. In that it's really important to listen. I apologize. Am I speaking like I just want to? Okay. Okay. I think it's important to when people are coming at you with stuff, that it's important to stay quiet so that you can understand what the real root of the problem is. I know you all are brought with problems all the time, as is the administration. They're extremely complex, and when those problems are brought, it's really important not to give opinions because you're only hearing half of what's happening. There's so many other layers to it, whether it's legislative, whether it's, personal background of the person that you're hearing from, whether it's, background with, student interactions, teacher interactions, human resources issues that are coming up. If you're not silent about what you're hearing and the feedback that you're getting, you're probably going to jump into something that you're not prepared to talk to. So having that time to pause and say, I hear what you're saying, I'm understanding what you're telling me, let me find out more, and someone will get back to you, and I'll check back. So I would say having the patience and silence would be a quality that I have that would be helpful. Did I answer that well? Okay.
Your answer's fine. No, that's fine. We're about students, so how do you make sure you do advocate for students in this role?
I've had so many roles in education and outside of education now. I've had such a variety of students just because of where I taught. I taught up in Northwest Allen for 6 years. I taught in some difficult neighborhoods in Fort Wayne community. Some of my students now, I've got such a variety of former students. Some, one young man is a manager at Barclays in New York. I have another young man who's serving a prison sentence for murder. It's a variety. But there's also a component of education that is legislated. There's a policy component. I have a lot of background in both. I have contacts that I know that I can call on as to be an advocate not only for our district, but for our kids and for education more globally. I spent time in those committee rooms down at the State House, down in Indianapolis, talking through accountability and what its impact is, and the assessments and the impact on the kids and the impact on teaching. And I've seen what that looks like, and it's one of the reasons that I'm not an educator at this moment in time. It's one of the reasons. So I think advocating not only from that base kid level, from that teacher level, from that administrator level, all the way, from the classroom to the State House, like it all has to be there. And if it's not, then it's a shortcoming.
How will you address concerns brought to you by the public, and will that be reflected in your votes on particular issues?
This is when I say this, understand that what I'm trying to say is this is a political body, and the board is bound by state legislation in addition to fiscal responsibility, in addition to, the needs of kids. Now, I already kind of talked about people are going to come to board members to talk through, hey, this, that, or the other. I am always going to advocate to coming to consensus with board members. It's not always going to be possible, but also to make sure that I understand the big picture, understand the initiatives that of the superintendent, of the other administrators. They're really smart people. If they weren't, they wouldn't be here because we wouldn't want them here, and I think we want them here. So really understanding that whole global perspective and how to bring that together into what board policy is, making sure that we're taking care of our teachers, making sure that we're taking care of our students, and that we are going to be able to do that for the foreseeable future.
The middle question, probably the big question, why? Why do you want to do this, and your ability to devote the time necessary to take on the responsibility?
The why is simple. The first why is I have two young boys in the district. One is 14. He was here last night accepting an award. Super proud of him. My other son is 5th grade, Flint Springs. I want to make sure my wife and I are both children of educators, and we know what it means to make sure that our kids have what they need, and I want to do everything that I can to make sure every child in Huntington has the opportunities to learn about the world, not only their world and have an understanding of themselves, but the world outside of their small family circle, to be that advocate. To answer your question about time, my mom passed away in August, but she always had a saying, and it's always stuck with me. You have time for what you make time for. If it is worthy, as this is, time will be made.
What do you see as the strengths and weaknesses of the public education system in Huntington County and beyond?
I think that this school district is headed in such a positive direction. One of the things that I wasn't concerned about until last night was the discussion about the ELL students and the increase in those kids. When I was a teacher, I had kids from Myanmar, Burma. Super interesting population, had Hispanic kids. I remember my first day teaching in Fort Wayne. I had one girl in my class, her name was Juana, and the only 2 words she said in English that first day was no English. It was and the year after that, I was teaching 4th grade that year. In 5th grade, she won Young Authors. It was exciting. It was really cool to see that. But I also know, with an increasing ELL population, knowing what I know about assessments, knowing what I know about accountability, the cards are being stacked against us, and we need to figure out how to be advocates for us and the good things that are going to come from these students, okay? The accountability system is literally stacked against the higher the ELL population, the more influence the ELL test has on accountability. And I'm going to tell you right now, native English speakers would struggle to pass that test. And the bar that is set by the State House, it's stacked against us, and we need to make sure that we're advocating the right way for that specifically.
What are your personal priorities, and what would you see as corporate priorities or goals for this board?
So I know that communication is important, but I would go so far as to say I would like to see community involvement, not just communication out, but figuring out how to involve the community in creating accountability measures that don't have anything to do what the state has to tell us about, but really accountability measures that are important to this community, and figuring out what that means. That's a huge, huge thing, and I'm not talking about test scores. I'm talking about things that happen in classrooms, things that happen outside of classrooms, whether it's athletics, like whether it's the robotics, what are those things that are important to this community that are going to drive the growth of this community and the exceptionalism that is this school district?
Why do you feel you are the best candidate for this district seat?
I have a horse farm. We breed horses. I absolutely love doing that. But one of the things that I will always say is that the best horse is probably standing in someone's backyard and isn't here. I can promise you that I'm not the best person for this role, but the best person for this role might not be in this room at all. I believe that I have a whole lot to learn about even though I've been involved in education for as long as I have, this is a different side of education, and I know that there's so much I have to learn. And I may not be the best person out there for the role. I hope I'm the best person in the room tonight. But I know that I have a lot to learn, and I'm excited to learn it.
Question, we'd ask others about the role of a school board member. I think you've addressed that, but any additional comments on the function of a school board member and the function of the board? Anything additional about the role and function of the school board? I think you've addressed it in other ways.
I do. I guess to kind of extend that, I think it's important for the board to set a standard and then make sure that we're meeting that standard and not just communicating it out, but really involving people in that process, so that they have a good feeling about what it takes to educate our kids.
Is there anything that has not been asked, has not been covered, not discussed, or something about you that, gee, I wished they would have asked me about this, or that we need to know?
I've been in this community for going on 20 years. I love this community. And at the same time, still know and understand that I'm always going to be the new guy. I don't think my kids are. They're rooted here, and I'm rooted here now. But I know that there are people that have no idea who Jim Detmer is, and I'm eager to really get to know those people in a way that is helpful to the district.
Okay. Board, any follow-ups, questions? This side? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Christopher can take the seat. Ready? Okay, this is Christopher Hoffman. So introduce yourself further, talk about your personal background, any educational experiences that relates to your applying for this position.
Well, like he said, I'm Chris Hoffman here. Grew up here in Huntington, attended Huntington Community Schools. After that, I attended the University of Northwestern Ohio. Came back to Huntington, worked here locally for many years before I started my own business here. Been doing that for many years, running it, all aspects, obviously, of it, from the day-to-day operations. And my education, I look at as it's self-taught on a lot of it. You know, obviously, it's hard to learn by yourself on a lot of how to run a business, from the finances to customer support and even the mechanic side of it.
Do you have any other not-for-profit experience serving on boards, committees, trustees of anything other than your work or any school-related?
Nothing on nonprofits directly. I've been involved with many projects with other businesses to help bring new products to life. Many years with some new technology, so when that was all, just done.
Explain what your business is.
So we are a diesel repair facility in Performance. So we work on a lot of trucks, obviously, and by that, we get involved with some new products that are coming to market, some for performance, some that actually help with the emissions aspects of these as well, is one of the bigger ones I've been involved with.
What do you believe are the qualities and skills of an effective school board member, and which of those quality skills do you believe are your strongest attribute?
To be a good board member, you need to be able to listen to your people around you, not even just the people that you're representing, but the other board members. We're all going to have different ideas that are going to be right, and our ideas may be wrong as well. And understanding that there's no one size fits all for it, and that you got to be a give and take at times to make the right decision, the best decision.
And what qualities or experiences do you have to support that opinion?
Being the business owner, I'm consistently given opportunities to make a right or wrong decision, whether that's with customers, with a vendor or a product that went bad, or a product that was great. So I've got to constantly work with a customer that is potentially unhappy with the way a job went, or know that they come to me with an idea of how they want something put together, and I can give them a different opportunity, a different option, and let them make that with the most information available.
Students are the focus of any public school education system. How, as a board member, will you advocate for student needs?
Well, of a father of two students here in the district, I've seen the strengths of the district and some of the weaknesses. I've advocated for them in ways that I've thought have been very difficult to stand up for. I thought things that were done wrong, and then things that were done right. So I'm very good at listening and looking with an open mind on how it's looked at and what needs done.
How old are your students?
I've got a freshman and a sixth grader.
As a representative, how will you address concerns brought to you by the public? And then how do your votes reflect priorities and desires of the people in your district?
I understand that people's going to come at you with emotions a lot, and that the emotions don't always mean that they're right decisions. We can't just lead on emotions, that you have to have the facts. You're going to represent them the best you can and give them the facts, and they may not have them all, just because it's hard to get all the facts out to the public, and that we're going to have to make tough decisions that they may not like, or some that they do approve of, and you're never going to appease to everybody, but you got to do the best you can.
The middle question that we've asked everybody: why did you put your hat in the ring? Why did you decide to do this, to apply to be a member of the school board, and as a follow-up to that, about time management and your ability to have the time to serve in this capacity?
I chose to run because I see the opening to help and improve the community. I see a short or a weakness in our industry in this area of hands-on training and the technical side. And I know we got the Learning Center that's growing a lot. I believe it's still underutilized and has a lot of potential. When I look at the openings in my field alone with hands-on, it's very alarming to see the under-training that's there. And then as far as time management, I've got some good employees there that will allow me to come and go as needed. I was gone half the day today that I didn't plan on, but I had to get some other stuff done that just popped up. So I can definitely, in a short notice, make something happen.
What do you see, and you referred to this a little bit earlier about the strengths and weaknesses, if you can list the strengths of the public education system here in Huntington County, and then also what weaknesses that you see from your
From my
perspective.
experience with the kids in the school, we've got some very good teachers that are very passionate about what they do. That is obviously the biggest strength I see that Huntington does have, is some passionate teachers. One of the weaknesses I've seen is I think there's some tools that should be utilized that maybe we need to look into more of and change a few of the things to give the teachers more tools and to get into the hands of the students. Again, I've got a student that excels very easily and one that is more of a hands-on learner, and he struggles more in the district. And I see a lot more of students like him that I won't say are left behind, but are almost passed through, that we need to figure out how to help better on alternative learning somehow.
What personal priorities or goals would you have in your term of service, and even broader for the whole corporation? So personal priorities, goals, and then what you would want to bring to the board as corporate priorities.
A personal thing I see is the Learning Center, and again, it's still a corporate, is that Learning Center and alternative learning areas grown. I think we're leaving a lot on the table with even the e-learn thing, the online learning. There's a lot of options. I think a lot of students could even excel on that aspect of it, and I know others that are going to not do well, need more of the hands-on training. So I want to see some more done on that aspect. So I don't think every student needs to have a full day of learning in school, especially as they get older. There's definitely other options that students are going to learn better at, and others need the full day of learning and instruction. So I want to open up more options for students with alternative learning styles, and I guess that's a personal and a corporate side of it for me.
By starting a business that's more of a hands-on business, how did you combine those, the academic side of learning, but then also the hands-on side of learning?
Geez,
I didn't ask anybody else that question, but I'm
that
just
is yeah.
fascinated.
How did I
by-
do? I feel very fortunate that I'm very good at hands-on learning and just experience and remembering those things. It is very difficult to own a business and to start one from nothing. I mean, I went from my garage to a pretty good-sized building now with multiple bays and pulling people from 2 hours away into the community here. It's a lot of hands-on learning, and it is difficult for sure. I don't know if I could explain it very easily.
Well, you appear to be successful at doing it, so.
I thank you, and I feel very successful with the business and with family and everything, and I've been blessed for sure.
If you could give a definition to the role and function of a school board member, and how the role that the school board plays in the overall education process.
The board should almost, I won't say should be behind the scenes making decisions, but they should be overseeing the decisions, making sure that they're done properly. Everyone has on the board a different outlook and experiences in life that they can bring, and the board should come together to make that best decision possible for the students.
You have the advantage, you're number 5, you've heard 4, the 6. What distinguishes you as the best qualified candidate for this position?
Well, that was one I've been sitting back there pondering, how do I answer that? And I've heard everything from I'm the best to I'm not the best, and I still don't know the correct answer for that, but I'm definitely going to come in with an open mind. Again, I have a lot of experience of listening to customers' concerns and keeping an open mind on what they would want, which may not be what's best for what they're trying to do with their vehicle. And I can see that very openly and step back and keep them moving forward to get their vehicle done. And I've done the same thing with some of our vendors we've had struggles with of it. And so I bring a different perspective, probably is my best suit there. just from being self-employed, not just in the normal employee corporate world. It's a different viewpoint.
Is there anything that's not been asked that you wanted to make sure was covered, or something about you that you weren't able to say earlier that you want to share with the board?
I guess I've been very passionate about helping the community for quite a few years silently. I have never been very vocal on it, so this is very out of my box here. That being said, I have, through my 12 years of self-employment, we've had, I believe, 6 students, not just from Huntington. We've got currently one from South Whitley right now that we have employed. I look at it that I'm not just their boss, but I'm helping mentor these kids to grow, and I can bring that to the table as well. So
Is that through an ICE program?
that's basically what they have. I'm trying to remember what they called it there. He's actually in a welding program, the half day, but it's their half days. I've had the kids from the ICE here. I think there was one through the Ag half day program years ago. So I've had a little bit of everything through there, and most have moved on and thanked me for the knowledge I've helped pass on to them.
Anything else you wanted to add?
I think I'm good there.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Board, to my right, to my left? No? Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, I was waiting for that to go down. Okay. Mr. Miller, introduce yourself to us. Talk about your background, education experience, how it relates to applying for this job.
Hank Miller, as someone said, I'm not from here. As was mentioned, not being from here is often looked upon with different eyes in this community. So my background is unusual. I was a product of the system. I came through as a foster kid. So I have some unique backgrounds, unique concerns. I went through my high school, then I went to the military, which I think is the most important part of my education. I know everybody wants to name their degrees, but everybody gets these degrees, but they still don't have the experience afterwards that a military education can give you. From my Air Force days, I came out and I kind of aimless hopped from job to job to job, which I did not realize that was actually a quality. Every 3 or 4 years, I went to another job, got a pay raise. Every 3 or 4 years, went to another job, got a pay raise. I went through different situations at CNC, metal cutting, automotive. You guys seen my resume. So I ended up here in Huntington almost by accident. Simply, I couldn't buy a house fast enough. And I was recruited to a metal wire company there in Fort Wayne and had to have a house. Bought the house, sight unseen. I was in Germany. And have a few kids in the system. I'm sure a few of you guys know them. And here I am.
What other board work, committee work, not-for-profit committee experience do you have, if any?
So I am a little bit more unique than the rest of them. I am heavily involved with the county council, the commissioners, the city council, and within that I had the opportunity to be on a Place of Grace committee, which was really good for the community. In my past, we were a very heavy soccer family. Coached a lot of soccer in my time. My kids kind of aged up. Of course, I raised 8 kids, so you can imagine I almost had a soccer team myself. And another unique thing that hardly anybody knows is is our family is huge into motorcycle racing. We do mentor and train a lot of the motorcycle racers, youth in the country. They, believe it or not, they do come through Indiana, through our house. We train other places. So that should answer that question.
What do you believe are the qualities and skills of an effective school board member, and how do your qualities, skills, and characteristics match up to those?
I think the most important quality is knowing weakness. I think each board member should know their weakness. They should, amongst yourself, possibly, if you don't know an answer, get together, find out the answer. As you know, I'm not a very good people person, but I have other qualities that someone else might have. What was the second part of that question? I know I should have memorized.
Well, how do your skills match up to?
Oh, so
if that's what a good board member is. How do you fit into that?
So I have been able to work in so many different industries and so many different teams, so many different projects, so many that I had no choice but to either be successful or we're probably not going to eat on some of these contracts. So I know you guys think I'm very flamboyant, but I do know when to be quiet. I know when to listen, and I also know when to get involved.
Okay. Following up directly on that, then how do you, as a board member, advocate for students?
I've thought about this one, and as many of you know, I am kind of a community. Community comes to me for information. I love kids. They're number one. But I think what's more important is the parents. We have to start advocating for parents, because without those parents, it doesn't matter what we do for those kids. Parents might go to another school district. They might be unhappy, but happy parents will translate into happy kids.
So how do we get the parents happy?
Again, I know more than I should be saying, but when I do talk to parents, they felt very talked down upon by some administrators. So I think it's a coaching opportunity of maybe we need to look into how to get the face of the school, your administrators, possibly to de-escalate, and our parents are our customers. At the end of the day, it's competitive out there. People are poaching our kids. People are poaching the school district. And fortunately, we have to treat our parents better.
As a representative member of the board, how will you deal with public questions and concerns, and how will votes reflect those priorities and desires?
So I do get a lot of concerns. I do try to coach a little bit. Believe it or not, I'm in the background saying, maybe this is not the school's fault. Maybe did you go to your teachers' conference meetings? Have you went to a volunteer to be for a field trip? There's so many opportunities, and sometimes bad situations like, well, have you sat in your kid's classroom? And sometimes when I've turned it around, things de-escalate pretty quick, and maybe the parents kind of back off of being so angry. And what was the second part of the question?
Well, how do you, then, if it comes times to vote, if you've had an issue that's been brought to you, then how do you balance what constituents necessarily have come to you about versus what you maybe think personally?
So being on a school board, it'll be a whole lot different. Number one, I'll definitely listen and probably not talk, because I will have to be coached by the board, because maybe I might say something that is not proper or might get the school in trouble. So probably not respond immediately and come back to the board and get some coaching.
As I've said to the others, the middle question, the kind of maybe the biggest question, why? Why are you doing this? Why did you apply? And the follow-up to that is talking about time. But first of all, talk about why.
Every single person in this room on this side has seen me at every single board meeting. They have seen me take notes. They've seen some of the articles I wrote. Basically, I chose this to be my home. This is where I landed. This is where I'm going to live forever. And I truly want the school board in the school district to be the best in a five-county area.
Okay. Time commitments. And
So that's a very good question. I am very blessed in my current role, Zimmer Biomet. Zimmer Biomet cherishes their employees to be community involved. I am in a unique role where my role is actually 24/7. My computer stays on all the time. My phone stays on all the time. And got in a little trouble. So somebody did a little phone call, and they didn't understand that I'm flex, meaning if I want to work in the morning, I can work in the morning. If I want to work at the night, I can work at night. But at the end of the day, my company gets more than 40 hours a week from me. So I'm very flexible.
Strengths and weaknesses. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the public education system in Huntington County and beyond?
So one of the most impressive things I've seen, I know you don't hear too many accolades out of me, is I was part of the strategic plan. I was impressed being at Crestview, seeing the community members, seeing the mayor. I was actually at the table with the mayor as we're doing the final edit of this. And that's what community is about. That's how the school is supposed to operate. That's how you get a buy-in from a whole community.
That's a strength. What weaknesses?
I see this often, and hopefully nobody takes this personally, but in my industry, we call it silos. I truly believe the board has some pretty high silos. We miss out on some things that people not from here catch, and is very important.
I didn't, the first word you said silos. Say that again. I'm sorry. Repeat your answer of the weakness being that we're in silos. Is that?
It's a business term that the industry uses. When you're in a silo, it means that you only see what's in your silo.
Okay.
You don't see what's beyond.
Okay. So as a board member, how would you expand those?
I will be the one to bust a silo.
Okay.
I am going to be the one that's telling you, and I know it's an uncomfortable conversation, hey, community's still healing for what happened at Huntington University. Are we sure about this? I'm going to be the one that's going to bring to the board, hey, grocery prices, people are having a hard time eating, people are doing utility bill. Should we be buying that admin building? I'm going to be the voice of let's look 30,000 foot, not our silos.
Okay, thank you. Kind of leads into this next one. Any personal priorities for your time of service on the board and broader corporate goals for the entire board? What would be your personal priorities, and what would be the corporate goals?
So I don't think college is for everybody. I think there's a stigma of not going to college. For the broader side is I am a product of a tech school. My last 2 years of my high school, I went to a tech school. I learned industrial electronics. I was blowing up resistors, capacitors, doing voltages, and along the way, I learned a pretty incredible skill that I still use today. So the third part of that is what really upset me was my children had said some negative things about that career center and it offended me. So I want to get the stigma away from the kids in the school, what type of gem we have over there.
Could you give us your definition of the role and function that a school board member plays and the board as a whole in the overall education process?
My answer is going to be a little bit different. Simply, we need to give our teachers the tools for success, anything they need to make a child successful. And I think the way the board measures that success is how well is that child and that student going to integrate in society when they leave Huntington North.
Why do you believe you're the best qualified candidate to fill this position for the next 2 years?
I'm not. What's sitting behind you? You have some phenomenal talent back here. However, what I bring to the table is I am very connected with our political leaders. Just last night, I was talking back and forth with a senator on another issue. I have relationships with the representatives. I could go have the lunch with the mayor, and most importantly is I have a higher support system that I believe that could be very useful to our school system.
What has not been asked or omitted or glossed over or something about you that you said, gee, I thought they'd ask that they didn't do that?
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Everybody knows I'm the administrator of a very controversial Facebook page. I understand that I will not be able to talk about the school. I understand that is going to be a conflict of interest, and I will recluse myself of anything school related on the Facebook news page. And I think that's important for everybody to know.
Okay, anything else about you or that either, again, was not asked or you want to make sure the board knows?
Another uncomfortable conversation. I think we have an opportunity to show Huntington that we will accept a little bit of diversity. The kids that are coming into the school right now are more Latin, they're more Asian. I have a unique skill set of reaching those kids. I've been there. I know what they're going through. There's many times I've been in this room for other things like sports. It really hurts me when I see a whole track team come up front and get their athletic scholarship plus their scholastics for getting good grades. It's almost a whole team. And I look behind me, it's the people that are of color that have not achieved that. That's eye-opening.
Okay. Board, follow up? Carrie, no? Okay, thank you very much. What we will do now, at the very least, is be able to stand up, stretch your legs. We are not going into a formal recess. The board will not leave the room in any way, but if we're going to gather our thoughts here and talk about the next steps. which will shift everything to this side of the table, except for, thank goodness, me and Mrs. Gray, we won't have to do the vote. But by Indiana statute, Indiana code, open door law, the discussion and actual vote to fill this position is a public meeting and must be done in public. So the only agenda item at this point is to vote on the candidates. Just quickly, some rules. Mrs. Gray will read each board member's name. They will indicate which candidate they are supporting. I first want to say thank you to the 6 who went through this, and as good or bad as it was to hear each other's answers, it was a very informative couple of hours, and I think we're grateful for that. And when a board member votes, they're doing exactly what we ask you about. What's the role of a board member? And I forget one of you that said it's to gather as much information as possible and then make an informed decision, and that's what this will be. So Mrs. Gray will read off the member's name. They will indicate who they are supporting, and since please with Mr. Hank Miller and Mrs. Deb Miller, make sure you don't just say Miller. We want you to say the first name. 4 votes are required. If 4 votes aren't received on the first ballot, we will then do a second roll call discussion first on all this. On the second ballot, if someone has 0 votes, they would be eliminated from consideration. So all candidates are eligible through the first 2 ballots. If somebody has not had any votes after the second ballot, then their name is off the list. The third ballot, again, if somebody has 0, they'd be removed. On the fourth ballot, if 0 or just 1 vote would be removed. On the fifth ballot, 1 or 0 removed, unless it's a 2-2-2 tie, and then we go on and we have the procedure and process for that. The most we could go to in eliminating as it goes forward would be 7 ballots. If at that point, or an 8th, if whatever, how it works out there, an impasse could be declared, and by statute, if this board has not made a decision, cannot make a decision, it goes to the judge of the Huntington Circuit Court for appointment. I think we said all that. So I think I'll turn it over to Mr. Allen before we, little different than, we're not going to make a motion that says, I move we elect X, because then that would just get very cumbersome and messy. So it's more board, you, as you're called on, you'll indicate A, B, C, D, or E. We'll get the totals and then see where we're at after the first ballot. If we get 4 on the first ballot, we'll be done, and we'll swear the person in. If we have to go further than that, we will, and we can have discussion between each time. So I'll turn it at this point over to Mr. Allen for discussion by the board regarding the candidates and any support you want to indicate.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. I first wanted to reiterate what he had said and echo what he said. Really appreciate your efforts tonight. You should be proud of yourselves. You've made the choice very difficult. Honestly, we have 6 very good candidates. I know that when we realized we were going to need to replace this district member, we were hopeful to get a couple, and you are all really, really good candidates and did a great job tonight. Anyone have anything they'd like to add?
Yeah, I was going to just reiterate what Tim had said. I also would like to thank the other individuals that applied that did not meet the qualifications that lived in the area. I just thought it was great that we had, I think it was 13 total people that applied for the position. So I do truly appreciate that. Also, if at the end of the day you don't make it on the board, please don't give up. continue to advocate for the community. That's one of the things that I think I heard across the board from all you guys is you're invested in this community, and I want to continue to have you do that and get involved. So on that note, I wish you all the best of luck.
Any other board members have anything they'd like to add? Mr. Wiley?
Okay, any other discussion at this point? All right, Mrs. Gray will again read your names. You're at this point, you're in alphabetical order. Mr. Allen, Mr. Carl, Mrs. Heim, Mr. McClellan, Mr. Melcher, Mr. Wall. So she will read your name, and I ask you to please indicate who you are supporting on this first ballot. And we will rotate who goes first if we have to go more than one ballot. But Mr. Allen, you get to, as
You wait for Mrs. Gray.
Yeah, wait for Mrs. Gray to call your name. We'll go from there.
Mr. Allen?
I vote for Deborah Miller.
Mr. Carl?
I vote for Chris Hoffman.
Mrs. Heim?
I vote for Deb Miller.
Mr. McClellan?
I vote for Deb Miller.
Mr. Melcher?
James Detmer.
Mr. Wall?
I vote for Deb Miller.
Certainly. I'm just going to read in alphabetical order by last name. James Detmer, 1. Chris Hoffman, 1. Deborah Miller, 4.
Okay, and I think by the rules we have established, Mrs. Miller, you are selected to serve on the board. We are prepared to swear you in tonight, and I think Cindy will then talk to you about even further training that will occur. So that'll still be part of this meeting, so.
We will close out the election of District 2 trustee and move to C, to items of discussion by board members. Anyone have anything they'd like to add before we close? Thanks again to all of you. Really, really productive night. As Mr. Wall said, there are all sorts of opportunities to volunteer and be a part of the things that go on in the schools, and as well as the committees. Some of the ideas that you brought forward today are absolutely going to be discussed by the board. I can assure you of that. You had a lot of great thoughts. It means a lot to us. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, board members, for putting your trust in me, but also thanks to what a great group to be a part of and great conversation tonight. And I hope everyone here will just continue to be involved and step forward. It's a great group.
And just to tie up the very last piece, this is a 2-year term. This is for the remainder of 25 and 26, and this seat is one that will be on the ballot in November of 26. Filing for that position will occur, I believe, in August of that year, so many days. So we encourage those that are interested, and there could be others too. So with that, Mrs. Miller, if you come forward.
Hold on. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You don't want to make this swearing in part.
Negative? Do we know what adjourn? I mean, it was up here. That's why it was on the list. That's why I thought.
Before the swearing in.
There is no swearing in up there.
I think we can make that part of the, we usually have that part of the
Yeah,
board when
I
we
think
do
we'll
it,
go
when we did
ahead.
it. Let's adjourn after the swearing in.
All right, we'll wait.
Yeah.
We'll wait.
I'll notarize. Do it
Make Tim do it. No, but to read it?
Yeah, come over.
Do you want to go around the front too? That way, can you take a photo?
But I need the mic.
Hold that.
let's do left hand, raise your right hand. And you need to turn around. All right. I, and state your name, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Indiana and the laws of the United States and the State of Indiana. I will faithfully execute the duties of this office as a member of the governing board of the Huntington County Community School Corporation. Yeah, wait. So help me God. Congratulations. Then you can adjourn.
You got some signs.